Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the world as you knew it is gone. No governments, no power, no future plans, just silence. One decision, one button, and a chain of nuclear launches turns Earth into a ticking clock. But here's the real question. What happens after the bombs fall? Will humanity vanish instantly or slowly suffocate under a sky of radioactive ash? Will the sun disappear behind clouds of soot for years while crops die, animals vanish, and cities crumble into dust? This isn't about the blast. It's about the aftermath, the long, slow death of a planet trying to survive itself. And the most terrifying part? Earth won't explode, it will fade. Quietly, irreversibly. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. For decades, the idea of a full-scale nuclear war has hovered like a ghost over humanity. Terrifying, yet somehow distant, almost unreal. The Cold War ended. Treaties were signed. Nations promised restraint. And with time, many people stopped thinking about that red button, the one that could change everything in a matter of minutes. But the threat never truly disappeared. In fact, it evolved. Today, over 12,000 nuclear warheads still exist on our planet. Stored, modernized, upgraded, some even more powerful than the ones dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 9 countries hold these weapons. Tensions rise, alliances shift, and the systems that were built to prevent disaster are now aging, vulnerable to error, and in some cases, fully automated. At the same time, our world has become more connected than ever. Global supply chains keep our shelves stocked. Satellites guide our every move. Cities breathe through electricity, servers, and invisible networks pulsing with data. We've built a civilization on a knife's edge. One spark, one miscalculation, and everything collapses. Scientists call it nuclear winter, a scenario where not just cities burn, but entire ecosystems. Smoke from the explosions would block the sun, sending Earth into a sudden, artificial ice age. Crops would fail. Economies would implode. And yet, this possibility still sits in the shadows of public conversation. Why? Because the truth is too big, too dark, and too close. This is not a science fiction story. This is a real, measurable chain reaction, one the world is still not ready to face. It all began in the depths of a world already at war. In 1938, German scientists discovered that splitting the nucleus of a uranium atom released a staggering amount of energy. That single discovery, nuclear fission, triggered a race unlike anything the world had ever seen. Just a few years later, in a remote desert of New Mexico, the first nuclear bomb was detonated during the Manhattan Project. A fireball brighter than the sun rose into the sky, and with it, the dawn of a new era, one where humans had the power to end everything they'd built in seconds. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. The world watched, horrified, and fascinated. What followed was decades of arms buildup. The United States and the Soviet Union plunged into a silent war of numbers, testing, upgrading, preparing, just in case. At the peak of this madness, the world had nearly 70,000 nuclear weapons ready to launch. Even now, despite treaties, despite diplomacy, the danger remains. Some warheads are still on hair-trigger alert, meaning they can be launched in under 10 minutes. A glitch, a misread radar signal, a cyber attack, that's all it would take. And with new technology entering the scene, AI, hypersonic missiles, autonomous systems, the margin for error keeps shrinking. This isn't just about old Cold War ghosts. This is about the future, a future where decisions might be made in milliseconds by machines. A future where once the chain reaction starts, nothing can stop it. And that chain is still very much alive. Just waiting. Right now, at this very moment, the world sits on a stockpile of unimaginable destruction. Over 12,000 nuclear warheads, many of them thousands of times more powerful than the bombs dropped in 1945. And here's the part most people don't realize. Not all of them are under tight control. Some are stored in facilities vulnerable to cyber attacks. Others rely on outdated systems built decades ago. In some countries, nuclear launch protocols depend on just a few individuals under extreme pressure, with minutes to decide. Imagine a false alarm, like the one in 1983 when Soviet satellites mistakenly detected incoming U.S. missiles. Only one man, Stanislav Petrov, chose not to report it and possibly save the world. But what if he hadn't hesitated? What if a machine had made that call? The truth is, nuclear war doesn't need global consensus. It doesn't even need a war. A single strike, intentional or accidental, could trigger a cascade of retaliation. Within hours, cities would be reduced to ash. Within days, firestorms would spread soot into the upper atmosphere, blacking out the sun. Temperatures could drop by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius globally. Crops would fail in North America, Europe, and Asia. Billions could face famine. And that's not science fiction. It's been modeled, simulated, studied for decades by climate scientists and defense experts. Maps have been drawn showing nuclear targets in every major country. Images exist of the blast zones, circles drawn over familiar cities, over homes, parks, schools, places you know. This isn't just about governments or distant politics. This is about how close we are, all of us, to a decision that could end everything. And most people wouldn't even see it coming. Here's something most people don't know. You don't need a full-scale nuclear war to destroy the planet. Scientists have modeled a scenario called a limited nuclear exchange, just 100 warheads detonated between two countries. That's less than 1% of the world's arsenal. And the result? Catastrophic. Those 100 explosions would ignite massive firestorms, sending over 5 million tons of black carbon into the upper atmosphere. Within weeks, sunlight would dim. Global temperatures would crash. Rainfall patterns would break. Agriculture in key regions, the U.S. Midwest, China, India, would collapse. The Earth would plunge into what experts call a nuclear famine, and within 2 years, over 2 billion people could die, not from the blasts, but from starvation. And here's the twist. Even countries not involved in the war would suffer the most. Nations in Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, far from the conflict zones, would face food shortages, crop failures, collapsing economies. The global food system is too interconnected. It can't absorb a shock like that. But why does this happen? It's basic physics and terrifyingly simple. When a nuclear explosion occurs, the heat ignites everything: buildings, trees, even asphalt. These fires create columns of superheated air that rise into the stratosphere, carrying soot and ash far above the clouds. And because that high layer of the atmosphere doesn't mix with lower ones, the black carbon just stays there, floating, blocking sunlight for months, even years. It's like pulling a giant thermal curtain over the Earth. And once it's up, we can't pull it back down. Not in time. Not before the damage is done. Today, science is doing more than just sounding the alarm. It's mapping out in chilling detail what a post-nuclear world would actually look like. Advanced climate models, developed using satellite data and high-resolution simulations, now allow scientists to predict the exact environmental consequences of even a small-scale nuclear war. One of the leading projects, run by researchers at Rutgers and the University of Colorado, simulated scenarios ranging from regional conflicts to full global exchanges. The results? Every model, even the smallest, shows catastrophic climate disruption. Some estimate that global temperatures could drop to levels not seen since the last ice age. But it's not just the climate. Recent studies are examining the long-term genetic impact of radiation, not just on those who survive the initial blasts, but on their descendants, mutations, birth defects, increased cancer rates. We're also seeing a rise in attention to AI-driven decision-making systems and nuclear command structures, technologies that promise speed, but raise terrifying questions about control, error, and accountability. Can we trust an algorithm to make a life-or-death decision with global consequences? Meanwhile, engineers are working on early warning detection systems, radiation shielding, and even atmospheric cleansing technologies, ideas that sound promising, but are still in their infancy. The truth is, for all our scientific progress, there is still no technology capable of reversing the effects of a nuclear winter. No machine can restart agriculture on a frozen planet. No AI can bring back sunlight once the sky is filled with ash. Science can help us understand the consequences, but it cannot undo them. Not yet. And maybe not ever. Not everyone agrees on how the end would come. Some scientists argue that the idea of a global nuclear winter is overstated, that modern cities burn differently than those modeled in past decades, and that the amount of soot released might not be enough to trigger an ice age. Others say the real threat isn't the climate, it's the social collapse that would follow. A breakdown in communication, in leadership, in trust. Some believe pockets of humanity would survive in bunkers, on remote islands, or deep underground. But what kind of world would they inherit? A silent, frozen earth with poisoned rivers, irradiated soil, and no global infrastructure left to rebuild. The optimists point to technology, that innovation always finds a way, even in darkness. That humans have endured catastrophe before. But here's the uncomfortable truth. We've never faced a threat of this scale. Never before has a single mistake had the potential to erase civilization. And now, that power is not only in the hands of governments, it's entangled with algorithms, private contractors, political tensions, and fragile alliances. Some theories even suggest a future where a nuclear conflict is triggered without human input at all, a glitch in AI communications, a cyber attack faking a threat, a retaliatory protocol launched by mistake. Progress was supposed to protect us. Instead, it may have made our extinction more efficient, faster, cleaner, quieter. This is the paradox we now live in. The smarter we become, the closer we get to the one decision that ends it all. And when that decision comes, if it comes, it won't feel like the movies. It'll be a brief silence, followed by a world that never sounds the same again. If a nuclear war were to erupt, even on a limited scale, the consequences wouldn't stay confined to the battlefield. The impact would ripple across every border, every ocean, every layer of the atmosphere. Ecosystems would unravel. Species would vanish. The delicate balance of life that took billions of years to evolve could collapse in a matter of weeks. But the human toll would stretch even further. Survivors wouldn't return to a broken society. They'd face a new world, colder, darker, lonelier. Food systems would be gone. Clean water scarce. Medical care non-existent. Entire generations would grow up under a sky that never fully clears, breathing in dust, growing up without sunlight, without seasons, without hope. This isn't just about science, or governments, or politics. It's about our future as a species. The very technologies we trusted to protect us have become the tools of our potential extinction. And in that realization lies the true horror. We built this ourselves. No alien invasion. No supernatural force. Just human hands, designing, testing, preparing for decades. The climax is not a single explosion. It's what follows. The slow unraveling of civilization, the silence of extinct forests, the glow of radiation in once living soil. And the world's response? In some ways, it has already begun. Movements pushing for disarmament. Scientists urging global cooperation. Whistleblowers risking everything to speak out. But time is not on our side. We are at a point in history where every choice matters more than ever, where inaction itself becomes a kind of decision. And if we don't act, the aftermath will speak for us. In the end, the story of nuclear war isn't just a warning, it's a mirror. A reflection of who we are, and who we might become. We now stand at a crossroads unlike any other in human history. One path leads us toward progress, cooperation, restraint, a future where knowledge serves wisdom and technology is guided by responsibility. The other? Toward silence. Toward the final misuse of everything we've created. The terrifying part is how narrow that line has become. One misunderstanding, one misstep. That's all it takes to shift the balance forever. But here's the truth. The future isn't written yet. Not fully. There is still time, though not much, to choose differently. To take the lessons of the past and treat them not as forgotten history, but as urgent instruction. Science gives us clarity, but morality gives us direction. We must ask, should the ability to end civilization exist in any hands at all? Is that power too great to be controlled, even by the best intentions? The answer lies not in fear, but in responsibility. In facing the uncomfortable truth that evolution has handed us tools we may not be ready to hold. And yet, here we are, alive, connected, aware. That means we still have a choice. The future is not yet ashes, not yet ice, but it won't wait forever. And if we are to survive not just this threat, but ourselves, We must act like a species that finally understands the cost of forgetting what it means to be human. Remember how we started? That quiet morning, the world changed in a heartbeat. At the time, it might have sounded distant, like something from a film, something that could never really happen. But now, does it still feel so far away? The truth is, the most dangerous events in history rarely begin with explosions. They begin in silence, in complacency, in the quiet assumption that someone else will fix it. But there is no someone else. It's us. You. Me. All of us. The power to destroy the world exists right now, and so does the power to stop it. That's not science fiction. That's today's reality. And if this story unsettled you, if it made your chest tighten or your mind race, then maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that means you're awake. Because this isn't just about governments or missiles. It's about our responsibility to each other, to future generations, to the very planet we call home. So let me ask you, if it ever came to that one final second, would we even know it was coming? Will we have time to say goodbye? Or would everything we've ever built vanish in silence? Let's not wait to find out. If this story made you think, even for a moment, share your thoughts in the comments. What would you save if the sky turned black tomorrow? What do you believe is still worth protecting? Because maybe, just maybe, talking about it is how we begin to change it. And maybe this isn't the end of the world. Maybe it's the beginning of finally understanding how close we've come.